last episode of Project Scirocco, I replaced the spark plugs, the spark plug wires, the distributor cap, the rotor, the ignition coil, changed the oil, checked the air filter, and took a quick look inside the gas tank, only to find out it was full of gas. 15-year-old gas. Fuel and exhaust systems. Yeah, here we go. Oh, shit. Okay, so we're back. The weather's starting to get a little cool outside. Fall's definitely here. Halloween's around the corner. And last episode, I tried to pull the in-tank fuel pump out, take a look, and notice that there was gas in there. And the smell was just horrendous. It was overwhelming. So in this episode, it's time to attempt to remove that tank and see what we can do to replace it with a brand new tank. See if I can save the fuel sending unit, replace the in-tank fuel pump, go ahead and take a look at the expansion tank, which is up next on the sidewall of the car, which is above where the regular gas tank is, replace the main fuel pump, and then replace the fuel accumulator and all the lines in between. And as always, I'd like to thank myself for sponsoring this video. If it wasn't for me opening my wallet, spending some money on parts, this old girl wouldn't be sitting here today. So thanks, me. So I don't know what I was thinking, but let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing that we needed to do is to get the rear end lifted up a little bit and put some jack stands in there. So taking a quick look at the underside, there's a nice solid cross beam going across the back end, which is part of the suspension, so that's where we put the jack stands. Alright, so let's take a look at the fuel system. What we've got is a small transfer pump located in the tank, which shoots fuel over to the expansion tank, routes it out through an S-shaped pipe over to the main fuel pump, and then that fuel pump squirts it over to a fuel accumulator, and then the accumulator shoots it out to the fuel filter up that's close to the engine. Okay, so this diagram shows the two components I'll be going after first. What you see in the middle is the fuel pump, and the fuel pump is located inside something called the sound absorber, which is really a big rubber mounting part, which then goes inside a bracket, which is then physically mounted to the car. And that's mounted just forward of the rear passenger wheel. Now the fuel pump is physically attached to the accumulator via one hose line, and then the other hose line connects right to the fuel line, which goes into the engine bay to the main fuel filter. And the accumulator itself is held on by one bracket to the underside of the car. So if you're not familiar with what a fuel accumulator does, it basically maintains the pressure in the fuel system for a certain amount of time after the engine has been switched off in order to facilitate restarting, particularly when the engine is hot. Essentially, the pressure accumulator is designed to hold fuel pressure at the injectors for quick starting. Alright, as I mentioned, the fuel pump and the accumulator are located just in front of the rear passenger tire, right under here. And because I forgot to start filming it when I started removing those two components, here is a fancy picture out of one of the service manuals of what the fuel pump looks like installed. And oh boy, this is what it looks like after you take them out. Nice empty space. There's the electrical connectors off of the fuel pump, and then you can see the lines right there in the foreground that went from the accumulator to the main line.
So the rubber sand absorber with the fuel pump just slides right out of that bracket. When you disassemble stuff like this, it's always a good idea to either take a lot of pictures, use your video, or make a diagram to make sure that when you reassemble, everything goes back in the right position. So as you can see, the sound absorber just comes right off, but before I take it completely out of there, I drew a quick diagram, as you can see, to make sure I get everything lined up with the hoses and the leads and whatnot. All right, it's about time to get underneath the car and see what it's going to take to get rid of this gas tank. It certainly does smell. The gas in there is pretty rancid. So, taking a look underneath there, I was really expecting to see some straps like you saw in the manuals. But what we found out is that this tank happens to be held in with 5 clips. There's 3 in the front and 2 in the side. Once the 5 clips were removed, it was time to get rid of the 9-inch rubber hose shown here that's connected to the fuel filler line.
Alright, so we're trying to get this gas tank out of the Scirocco, and we unbolted the clips that were up here and over here and over here, and 2 on the sides. And you can see that the tank drops down, but there's a cross member right here. And that cross member is attached to the suspension, and it's held on by 2 bolts right in there. And I think to get this tank out of here, there's no clearance. We've got to unbolt those 2 bolts on both sides and drop this cross member down. There's the filler tube, cut it off. We had to cut off the muffler because it was coming through this port right here. So I think there's that bolt. We're gonna have to take, there's one in the front, there's a bushing, and one on the back on both sides. And it looks like that's the next step. We've got a jack in the middle. We'll keep in jack stands on the side for safety. We've got these stands, ramps. So we've got other jack stands on the pinch welds. I think if we can put this hydraulic jack in the middle, keep the tension on it, back those 4 bolts out, we'll see if we can drop this cross member down. All right, so the suspension dropped. Got rid of a few of those gas lines holding it on the side, and there's the tank. Just about ready to be extracted. There's that expansion tank, which is 120 bucks. All right, wow. Here it is from the other side, hanging down. Suspension bar. About ready to extract.
It's okay. It's okay. Let's just see if it'll come out this.
It's right here. It's right here. Yeah, it will. Here it comes. Here it comes. Yep. Watch your head. Watch your head. Watch your head.
Get back out of here.
Holy shit. That's it. That's it.
All right.
And there it is. There is the frickin' gas tank. Woo! Look at that. Woo!
I'm gonna keep it up this way. Okay. You got the other end. No. Far end. Okay.
Got it.
Let's take it outside. Let the air out.
Look at that. Doesn't that look tasty? Doesn't that look tasty? Oh yeah! I didn't think that was going to happen.
Okay, stop. God, this is hard to see.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Okay, line or line up?
I think I'm good.
Okay, come on up with it, Parker.
Slowly.
Okay.
There you go. Oh, there, I'm in. I'm up. Push.
All right, stop.
Stop.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay. Get the nuts and washers.
Okay, so here's the tank is gone. We're still on the jack stands on the pinch welds. The next thing I want to do is come up here and start working on removing this expansion tank right there. Now, if you follow any of the Volkswagen repair sites, that little guy is really difficult to get a replacement of. So I was able to get a replacement, a brand new part out of the UK at heritagepartscenter.com. It got to my place in about less than a week. So I'm gonna try to extract it from the system. There's all sorts of lines going in here. There's lines that go back to the top of the fuel sending unit. There's other lines that go over to the fuel filler. All right, to get to some of these hoses, I've got to remove the internal cover and the rear wheel well. And there's a final nut up here that's just taking forever. There's the 3 lines. And they go down into the frame right there. They're pretty tight. You can see those clips. And again, this orange one kind of comes up here to the fuel filler.
Alright, so now I've got access. You can see right there I stripped a bolt. No! So I gotta figure that one out, because that's a bolt from the inside out. Stud, I guess. But the other ones are okay. Alright, so now that we've got this off and I can see what I'm doing, I'll go down to the bottom side and see if I can get that expansion tank out. Okay, so one thing else I just noticed is way up here. I don't know if that's focusing. Way up in here, that's apparently the gravity vent valve. And it's got two lines. This line coming off the top and this line coming off the bottom. And those are the other two lines that come down here. Now it's interesting that there's a braid here. There's a metal insert here. I guess maybe that's for abrasion. I'm not sure. That's on the other two. But this gravity vent valve, it's got two lines. And if I look at this, and if I look at the manual, here's the gravity vent valve. Those go down and it looks like they're going right into the tank. So I don't know, we'll see. I'm not sure if I have the lines or if I really want to replace those. Those look like they're okay.
A few moments later.
Alright, so after getting gas dribbled all over my camera, here's the expansion tank. This is the S-shaped tube I keep reading about. Another intermediate tube right here. This hose right here on the end went to the main fuel line, and then these two go back up into where the fuel sending unit and the fuel pump are. So I'll make sure that I mark both of those, the position of both of those. But it appeared like it was just hanging there, held in taut by the lines. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's in too bad a shape. Be able to salvage that S. Be able to salvage that S clamp. Get new hoses for the rest. You know, beyond being faded, it doesn't look like it's in too bad shape. But I do have a new one. To recap, we learned about a Mark II Scirocco fuel system, removed the main fuel pump and the fuel accumulator, dropped the rear suspension to get access to the main gas tank, pulled that gas tank out, found that it still had some 16-year-old gas that looked about as orange as Kool-Aid. Removed the fuel expansion tank and looked at a fuel sending unit that's seen better days.
Alright, so hey, that's all we have time for this episode. I really didn't think that tank was going to come out. Definitely not a one-person job. Marginal at best at a two-person job, and really takes a third set of hands to drop the suspension. I hope you find some of this content interesting, especially if you've got a Mark II Scirocco for sure. I'm diving into something new every time we do one of these, and I appreciate you guys stopping by and taking a look. So until next time, we'll see ya.